Welcome to the Jali podcast. I'm your host, Melyssa Barrett. This podcast is for those who are interested in the conversation around diversity, inclusion, and equity. Each week, I'll be interviewing a guest who has something special to share or is actively part of building solutions in this space. Let's get started. Randy Ramiro is the founder and CEO of Infanta International Incorporated, the parent company of the first and only double gold craft distilled spirits brand of its kind, Infanta Lampanag. Infanta Lampanag is made from coconut palm tree nectar, imported from the islands of the Philippines, and the first and only to reach U.S. and UAE markets. Randy is passionate about sharing his cultural heritage with others through his brand and also enjoys learning about other cultures as well. Prior to his endeavors as a serial entrepreneur in industries spanning renewable energy, climate change, import-export, and product development, Randy's professional background holds over 8 years in federal procurement that supported fundamental science research efforts at Stanford University's SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory and UC Berkeley's Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. Randy's personal interests include world travel, music, Bichon Frises, and spending quality time with his family. All right, Randy, I'm so excited to have you this week with me. So I am just elated that we had the opportunity to meet at a community event not long ago. And we'll give a shout out to Ying who connected us, Ying Liu. She is out there, our San Francisco Arts Commissioner now, and talented all around artist for sure. So I want to just start off talking a little bit about your background and how you came to be where you are today.
Wow. Well, I guess there's a lot of different ways I can take it, but let's start off from the very beginning of the start of Infanta Lampanag, which is the brand that I represent. It's an idea that formed back in 2008, and it was to bring in a product, which is alcohol, an alcohol brand of our own, my own country and my heritage of the Philippines. It's called Lampanag. The brand is called Infanta. And we brought the first Lampanag brand to be sold on the market here in the US and also the United Arab Emirates. And it's very representative of our heritage and culture, which was not represented before. And I think first off, just want to say thank you, Melyssa, for having us here on the Jali podcast. It's very, very in tune with what we believe.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to hear about it. I mean, and you hear about, so many people being the first. And so for you to be able to bring it here to the US is pretty awesome. So do you want to talk a little bit about, I think you said you were born in the Philippines.
Yep. Yes, that's right. I was born in the Philippines, in Manila or Makati, Philippines. But in my family, we were kind of, our family is both, American and Philippine. So we have dual citizenship. And I was born in the Philippines, but shortly after, in the 1 year, when I was 1 year old, 1 or 2 years old, came to the U.S. and kind of our families just kind of assimilated into that, but also held very strongly to our culture and heritage. And, that there's a whole story behind that. And not only for myself, but for our community at large. Yeah.
That's awesome, because that's often really difficult to do. I know as I grew up, my mother is from Panama. Oh. And for us, it was like, we need to speak English. You're not going to speak Spanish. And so we of course had this disconnection because of the assimilation that, everybody was trying to go back in the 70s. So I love the fact that, you're keeping that culture as my husband used to say, a culture keeper, to really make sure that the culture comes through and that everybody gets to know the heritage and gets exposed to it. That's great.
Yeah, I think that was like a very common, I guess you could say, theme in in the 80s and 90s. I guess assimilating into this culture, maybe as a first generation or second generation immigrant. Like the question as you grow up would be, how am I accepted, in this society, and also represent my own. And I know in my experience, like speaking with others in our community, I've come across people that have completely disowned their culture, and I was alarmed because I'm thinking we have such a beautiful culture and it should be shared. And not only that, and I'm Filipino, and with that, there's an understanding of our culture being very inclusive and accepting and also sharing. And that was a surprise to me, and I wanted to change that narrative. And it's a very similar goals with others in our community too that I've come to find. They had the same experience, and to be part of that, to find myself a part of something that was actually happening, a movement that was happening, was really special. And a community of my own. So
that's awesome. Well, and now you have this opportunity to educate people on a culture that they may not be aware of. So what is Lumpanog and where does it come from? What does it taste like? You're gonna have to describe it for our listeners.
I had an idea to bring a bottle here to just show it. We can do a cut and then show it.
Yes.
Lumpanog, in its very simple form, it's an alcohol that's distilled from palm tree nectar, and so specifically coconut palm trees. When you go back to the Philippines, people may refer to it as coconut vodka, coconut wine, and I think Lumpanog inherently being from like the industry of distilled spirits and culturally from the Philippines, there was a disconnect because, I think in the Philippine mindset, there wasn't an understanding of this industry, with alcohol and distilled spirits, that we didn't know the terminology, didn't know how to kind of connect, which is also another thing that I guess you can say our culture is assimilating to. But in the same effect, the industry did not also acknowledge that there is a lot of contributions that our culture and heritage has contributed to the distilled spirits history and culture and community at large. And there's so many, I'd love to go into that, if you will. And
please,
would love to share that with you all. And
that's awesome.
Maybe before I start, I can just grab a bottle to show.
Yeah,
is that all right?
Free. That'd be great.
Okay, 1 second.
Because you gotta have a bottle close by at all times, right?
Right. Yeah. I was like, oh, how come I don't have one here? Here is our bottle. It's so beautiful. Melyssa and viewers, this is our bottle. It's called Infanta Lumpanog. Lumpanog is the category of spirits, so similar to sake or vodka or rum. This is the category. Infanta here is the brand that we bring here into the U.S. First ever Lumpanog sold and distributed here in the U.S., United States, and United Arab Emirates, soon to be Canada.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So where shall I start now? I think I was speaking on our heritage's contribution into the industry. So I think with Lumpanog generally, there is a lot of unknowns in regards to like, where does it come from? What's it made from, and when was it created, and how does that play into the history of distilled spirits? And so I think the story that I believe connects the most with our industry is in the contribution of Lumpanog technology that was adapted by Mexican agave distillers. So, by the way, Melyssa, I'm trying to formulate my thoughts in the most simplest form.
No worries. Take your time. Take your time, Randy.
So, back in 1565 to 1815, about 200-300 years or so, there was a Spanish galleon ship, or multiple ships that, in this period, they called the trading between Philippines and Mexico Spanish galleon trades. And you can Google that, look into history, and it'll tell you more about how the Spanish traded between Philippines and Mexico directly. So twice per year during that 200-300 years, the Spanish galleon ship would do trades from Philippines to Mexico. And one of the things that they traded among, like silks, textiles, and other goods was the technology of distilling. So distilling was done in the Philippines by these, they called it Filipino stills. And, there's other terms that people associate with that, but it was a still that you can kind of create. It wasn't a big one, but it enabled the process of distilling. So separating vapors from, a fermented mash of yeast and product. So anyway, I think that's maybe more detailed. But they, in the Spanish galleon trade, they brought these stills, Filipino stills, to Mexico. And that during those times, Mexico had produced agave liquor. I'm sorry, not liquor, but like a beer. And they called it pulque. So Mexican agave was fermented into pulque, which is like the beer form of tequila or mezcal. It was never distilled. And so once the Filipino stills were adopted into the pulque industry, into the whole process, that's when mezcal and agave spirits were formed. They took the pulque, and then it turned into what's known now as mezcal and tequila. So in general, considering how big the tequila industry is, how big the mezcal industry is, not acknowledging the fact that this technology was contributed from the trade between the two countries would be sad to not have that story included. Yeah. And I think on the grander scale of the industry, it's very important for people to know, for historians, for aficionados of tequila. It's an important story that needs to be shared, and we're losing that. We're losing that in the industry, and we're losing that on the support from our own government, which we're also contributing to, like how that discussion pans out from here forward. So,
that's awesome. That is awesome. See, these are the things. My voice is all raspy today, but these are the things that are so important to me in terms of being able to get people to come on and really talk about the perspective. You're going back to the 1500s, and talking about the trade with Mexico. And I'm like, wow. Those are things, right. You're right. We do lose kind of what that history looks like and the contributions of so many other countries in the United States and abroad. So, it's really a global conversation that we're having constantly, which is great.
I'm glad you can acknowledge that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just appreciate all the things that you're doing to, make sure that the acknowledgement is there and that you're providing a perspective that a lot of people don't hear about very often when you're talking about, Lumpanog and the Filipino tequila or vodka, or, the contribution is so great. Not to mention, as we get back into, farming and all of those things, it's amazing to see when we just look at the resources that we have in front of us, how we how we actually manage and maintain them. And alcohol, of course, is a great way to do so.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think you're right. Farming, considering how farming and that whole process and harvesting is implemented is an important part of the discussion too. I want to
yeah,
add in, I did a talk at the California Academy of Science. They have a museum or space in San Francisco for that, and I was invited to speak on that on behalf of the Philippine Department of Tourism and Industry, and to make sure that we had a voice there. And it was just a really cool opportunity to be able to be a part of that and represent, a portion of our heritage that it does not have, does not have light shunned upon.
yeah. No, in fact, I think I saw something on that, and I want to say there was a drink called Wang Wang.
Yes, yes.
I was like, hold on. I think I was doing some research, Randy.
All right. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, the wing. Have you ever tried a?
I have
wing
not.
before?
I have not.
In the Philippines. So I guess what the one really cool fun thing about what we do in our industry are cocktails, and cocktails are just a creative way to express in drink format. Like different things you want represented, and the Wang Wang is a cocktail that was named and created in the Philippines. It's just a mixture of different drinks, but there really is a cocktail named Wang Wang, which is really funny, and there really is a drink called Wang Wang. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, I think it was awesome because I think if I remember correctly, they had they let people try and taste Lampanog,
Yep.
Infanta, and then they also had a couple of cocktails
Right.
that they allowed people to taste. So I think that was awesome. I love the fact that the Filipino tourism, was involved, almost taking people on a journey there through drinks. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, we were just ecstatic about the opportunity. I think that wasn't our first collaboration with Philippines Tourism Department. We've also, I think in our inception, we have done a celebration of Filipino foods, or we participated in a number of different events. One of them, I think our initial one was, it's called Savor Filipino. Savor Filipino is a Filipino food festival, the first of its kind that happened here in San Francisco. And it just brought together a lot of our community, which is very big, considering the number of our demographic all across the US. And we brought representatives of each, I guess you could say, region of the US that represented our Filipino food community. And we brought them together in one space here in San Francisco. I think that was back in 2014. And I think we had an awesome opportunity. We were invited by Philippines Tourism Department to represent as well on the drink side, and alongside, I believe, San Miguel Beer. Yeah, I think you'd say that's probably that was our initial interaction, and just from there we've collaborated many other times. The fact that they acknowledge that we are representative of our culture here in the US, and they support it, is just mind-blowing. You couldn't ask for more. I mean, especially coming from a place that never had this product represented. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and to that point, how did you even decide to go there? Since it had never been, it's not something that has been here. I mean, were you just on a bender one night and said, you know what, I'm going to try this, or what?
Yeah, you know what, it's a, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, the question of did you, how did you come up with the idea? Did it come up? It's so funny that you posed it in that way, because it is a common question, like, were you guys drinking? And then the idea came up. And so initially, yes, I think when I was searching for something I can involve myself in, like shortly after I graduated my university studies, the question of like, what should I involve myself in? Where can I contribute to, the society and what I believe in, and something that holds true to my culture and my beliefs. I was drinking with my business partner at the time, and I think one of the things that that inspired me to bring up the idea to my business partner after a night of drinking was, I graduated college, my university studies. I had a graduation party, and all my family was there. And what's kind of special in some Filipino families is that they may have a lumbanog bottle that they have flew and snuck into their luggage when flying here to the US. And this is very common with many Filipino families, not all, I would say, but many. They'll have a lumbanog bottle that was flown from the Philippines, and it's in the, their liquor cabinet, something like that. But they'll only have a drink during special occasions. And, my graduation, a bottle was brought out that was aged over 20 something years. And as I shared that with my family, I would have to say it was one of the best alcohols I've ever tasted. And that's coming from a college experience of, drinking and things like that.
Celebrating and enjoying yourself, right?
Right. Exactly. And I said, wow, why is this not here? Why is it not here in the US? And I started going on Google, and it was not. And I was so taken back because of the amount of alcohols that are represented here in the US in comparison to our demographics. Like, we have our community holds like a large part of, some regions, and just considering that and us not being represented in the space of distilled spirits was, it was shocking. And I said, this is what I want to be a part of. This is where I want to contribute and add to the story for our community. And, building a small business is always difficult, but I'm so happy to say and deliver the message that, hey, I think we are gaining traction here. We have gotten noticed even by the bigger global portfolios. We've been connected with many of them. And not only that, but we've also had the chance to share lumbanog to the industry at large and make it available. And I think that has been an awesome experience to do. And
Yeah.
no one else has that. I mean, and we even have like others that are following in our footsteps, the next generation that I see. And it's not only lumbanog, it's like different. And it's not only in the US, but now there are others that are looking to bring it elsewhere. And I'm just, I'm like, wow, this is exactly the kind of push and collective effort that we need in order to create a voice here.
You are definitely blazing a trail. So I see lots of wonderful things, and you're pretty young yourself.
Yeah.
To be the CEO of your own brand, which is awesome. So, and I think one of the things that's really interesting to me, especially, looking at how young you are, you're already really mentoring others. And so your leadership in that way is just amazing to me, because I think a lot of people, they're very specific and everything is very competitive.
Yes.
But you tend to be very, mentoring to other people, even in your industry.
Yeah, I think collaboration for us in our experience as a brand has been the most support. Like, that's been the most supportive thing for us to not only keep us afloat, but to push us to the next level. and just my experience and my team's experience take on the industry itself. I think it's very unique in that it's exclusive. And so, like, if you were to think about any other industry, I don't know, let's say ice cream, maybe having an ice cream restaurant, I think being able to support another, someone else's endeavor to start an ice cream restaurant elsewhere, I'm sure that they would love to support them and guide them. And what I found here in the alcohol industry after 10 plus years, over 10 years surely, was that it's very exclusive, almost fraternity-like, I guess. You really have to know the right people, make the right connections. Otherwise, you will be shunned out. And there's a lot of nuances to consider when involving yourself in the industry. And I've luckily our brand has been able to survive navigating through that. And I think that's because of the support of our community, because the community has built up a voice and we have support there. I think those that have a say in what's included into the next generation of spirits to be considered in certain outlets, they've taken a notice to us because of the support. And so I wanted to take that same collaborative effort and support another brand that I believed held the same values and really did something good and represent something well. That's exactly, I think it's representative of our people, even, just being very inclusive and sharing. And what better way to do that than, share it with others and that want to do the same thing.
Yeah. Let's pause for a moment. We'll be right back. What a fabulous leader you are in the space. I think it's just awesome, especially as we talk about. You talk about the importance of not only the people and the culture, but how they are in fact supporting you, which kind of to me, everything comes back to why people need to be engaged in the community is because your voice does matter. It makes a difference. And so to the extent that you actually can express your values, your thoughts, your feedback, and spend your money accordingly, it speaks volumes to the world, right?
Right. Melyssa, I think it's so fitting. This discussion is so fitting because and what Jali represents as a podcast and the values that you guys are putting out there and are representing also, I think it's very fitting, this discussion, because I think in our experience, we were able to live that and see the outcome of a community that comes together in support of our communities and representation, and see it actually applied to a mainstream audience and have it accepted and acknowledged. And I just want to give like one example that I was super proud of. I think about 2 years ago, I think it was prior to COVID, there was a New York Times article, or not only article, front page, New York Times front page article on Filipino food. And that has never happened before. But I believe the spark for that to happen started from the little communities coming together in support of each other and starting that discussion. And then it kind of led to, hey, there's something going on here. These editors and journalists are saying there's something going on here that's happening. Let's cover it. And just that support from not only within the community, but from outside, and just from that angle is just, we were able to see that. And I'm so, I believe that these types of discussions that we're even having now on this podcast are very important for
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But one of the things I was going to ask you is, you talked about the, having to know people, which was kind of a nice way of saying there's a good old boy network somewhere in there, I'm sure. You said it very nicely, but but I think one of the things, I mean, I'm assuming there's lots of lessons learned, as you've gone through this journey, as you all have come out with the brand. Are there things now, because of the mentorship and collaboration that you're certainly pursuing, do you see some of that getting better? Is there an impact, or are there things that other people can do to kind of celebrate what you're doing in the space?
Let's see. I guess the question is, do we see it getting better? Do we see the collaboration amongst inter-community collaboration? Is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Or is there room for improvement? Because if there's room for improvement, maybe that's what we're looking for today.
Yeah, I think there is a room for improvement. Just maybe if we're talking industry-wise, I think the times are changing. Back when we first started, it was either you're a big brand or you're not, and you're not included into the big retail space. But now, because of the little brands are starting their communities, that opened up the idea of, hey, let's start a craft industry. And now, even if you walk into big retailers like, I'm not sure if I can say, but Bevmo or, Total Wine, they have aisles dedicated for smaller craft brands. And I think that is a step forward, but, and I think it's progressed. I do think it is progressing, but there is definitely a room for improvement in how these brands can start and even grow. I know even the large portfolios have only recently created venture capital or funds that can support startups that look to aim towards that direction. And for that to just happen now is, well, it's a good thing that it's happening, but for it to just happen now, it means that it's just the beginning. And I think that there's a lot more room for us to kind of help build that.
Yes, for sure. Well, and I'm just thinking back to when you started in terms of, your own capital funding process had to be pretty challenging. So, I mean, it's nice to see the, tides perhaps starting to turn. So right. That's awesome.
Right. Starting up any business is very difficult. And, I guess maybe that's a defining challenge, that if you are serious about moving forward with a business, maybe that's a challenge that must be overcome by any small business. Anything that comes easy is easily thrown away, but you dedicate yourself and you commit yourself, then you're open to anything and you can do anything. Yep.
Definitely. In fact, I just was looking at a study that was sent to me earlier, and they were talking about how there's a new report out there that talks about racism discouraging, specifically this one was Black businesses from funding, but it was really about the fact that, you get to the point where you don't even want to apply because you're going to be rejected. And so there were, I think the number of firms of Black firms that were that did not apply for financing was like 40%, where if you looked at, it was only 12% for white firms or 24% for Hispanic and 22% for Asian firms. And so it's interesting to me because when you talk about continual discrimination and racism and how it can impact, the businesses that you want to open, the expansion that you want to do, not because you don't want to do it, just because you've been discriminated against in the past. So,
yeah, I agree. It's discouraging from a place of previous experience and just seeing like what kind of in comparison, like what type of support do we have as maybe minorities or different background, I guess, compared to like others. And I think that, it's very discouraging. It's very discouraging to see that play out, and should not be. I think success should not be defined by, the color of our skin. And, I don't see how that changes anything. That needs to be changed.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons I love doing this, because celebrating people that are doing it like you are is so inspiring to me. And I hope it's inspiring to other people who are listening and seeing you blaze a trail at your young age to become a CEO. I know you also just got married not long ago. So congratulations there.
Thank you.
2/22/22.
2/22/22 on that Tuesday. At 2:22 p.m.
That's at 2:22 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny. That's another story, but yeah, it's a cool little thing we wanted to have.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right. So tell us more about what we can expect with Lumpanog.
Okay, so with Infanta Lumbanog, we have just recently increased our distribution into more stores, 35 more stores of Bevmo. We have increased our sales over our current retail locations at Seafood City. Seafood City is our biggest supporter, and that is a Filipino retail and business. But we're also in Total Wine. We're expanding into different regions. One of them being Canada, like I mentioned earlier, but we are also in United Arab Emirates at Spiney's locations and select hotel venues. And right now online, you can purchase it in different states. So different states are governed by different laws. So sometimes it may not be available, but you can see if it's available online and you can purchase it from there. The preferred one I'd like to refer people to is holidaywinecellar.com. So if you're in the East Coast and you want to grab a bottle and it's not available there, you can go to holidaywinecellar.com. I think that just continual growth. In regards to branding, we're changing up branding a bit and trying to navigate through post-COVID times and seeing how productions work, because that's always a monster. And just trying to step to the next level and maintain. I think we are doing a fantastic job. Our team is doing great. And having opportunities like this, being a part of Jali podcast, is just amazing, and truly appreciative of it.
Awesome. Well, and tell us, Infanta, the name, where did that originate?
So Infanta is a name of a town in the Quezon province of the Philippines. Now, I should distinguish, Infanta is not where we source our product, but it is more of an inspiration in a story where one of our friends have volunteered his time through, I think, the Red Cross when the town was devastated and brought to all of the buildings were destroyed. And so when he volunteered in the town of Infanta to help rebuild it, the townspeople, and more particularly the town priest, offered to him a bottle of lambanog in I wouldn't say compensation, but maybe to show his gratitude for volunteering, even though the town had nothing. Literally, it was devastated. And for the fact of that, you know, that actual um, gift giving, it told a lot about who we were as a people and our gratitude, and also just being able to rebuild and coming out of that together meant a lot. And we wanted that to be represented in our brand. They do manufacture lumbanog in Infanta, but that's not where we get it. But that story is so integral as into representative into
Yeah,
who we are as a people, I think.
that's awesome. The resilience, the strength, there's so many different components to that. So inspiring. That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's awesome.
Can I add in
I,
one more thing? Infanta is actually a Spanish word that is, in regards to like royalty and like the family, royal family. It is, an Infanta is not the princess, but it is the next in line, the next daughter in line. So if we were to play that into our story, we are not the princess, or this brand is not the princess coming into the distilled spirits industry, but we are the next in line,
next in line, next in line.
shooting forward. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, are you telling me that maybe you're telling me you have like a daughter on the way? No, I'm just kidding.
My wife and I, we're planning on we're planning on having a future with kids, and I'm looking forward to it. I joke around with our mutual friend Emmanuel, because he has children. Emmanuel is the owner of Old Hillside Bourbon Company, and they have a whiskey. And for all, I'm also helping mentor and guide them through the industry. But I always joke with him in regards to like having children, and we just joke around a lot. And he says, it's a handful, but it's worth worth every bit of having children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hopefully you'll come back and tell us all about that once you once you cross that opportunity.
Yeah. How about you, Melyssa? Do you have children of your own? I haven't.
Oh, yes. I have 3 and I have 6 grandkids, actually.
Wow. Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes, we are expanding and expanding. So it's it's like once you start, they just kind of keep on going. So
How is this discussion passed down to the foundations, like the discussion of inclusion and diversity, how important that is? Like, I'm so interested.
what's so interesting about it is so my husband and I started Kwanzaa like 20, 22, 23 years ago. And that was kind of our first. My husband was completely into history of every kind. So he could tell you your history no matter where you came from. And so for us, it was, let's start with Kwanzaa. We were kind of sick of the commercialization of Christmas, but really wanted to focus on something cultural. And to be honest, I don't think we actually thought our kids were paying any attention until all of a sudden they were like teenagers and they started getting like tattoos with, Kwanzaa principles. And, it was like
Wow.
all of a sudden we were like, oh my gosh, they were actually listening.
Yeah.
And so now, it's like all of them are doing something that has to do with, inclusion, their mindset, they're caring for others, they're, focusing on different health and wellness, ritualistic ceremonies. And the oldest one is in the Air Force. And he's teaching on, inclusion as well. So it's been kind of one of those things where you continue to expand your conversation. Everybody's always learning. And so I don't think you ever get to the point where you can't be educated on something that has to do with inclusion, because nobody knows everything about every culture. But it's an opportunity for us to continue to have that dialogue and just continue to be open and hearing about other cultures. And I mean, the fact that you talk about the fact that people can really give Infanta in a way that, really shows the amount of gratitude and the special, event that you might be coming to when they're bringing Lampanog, I think is so amazing because, it's like we want to be able to connect with others in a way that really allows us to understand different cultures. And I think it's so awesome that you're giving people the opportunity to share something that's bigger than the drink, but the connection, which is awesome.
I agree. Maybe I want to ask here because in previous podcasts we've had new interested fans into our brand, and also those who have been part of the podcast that have just learned, and also others from our community that's kind of following our progress here and conclusions. So I wanted to ask, in regards to inclusion and diversity, and in my opinion, in my experience, I think that dialogue has only started in the last decade, maybe 2 decades. I don't know, but maybe you can kind of dive more into that. And I know on my part, it's very important that it's talked about because we lived it. We're living in our collaborations, in our values, and I don't think our brand has done the best job at exposing that story. But maybe for those who are following in this podcast and our hearing it maybe for the first time, our experience in that discussion, I'm wondering, maybe could you kind of give our followers even some background into just the history of where did this discussion start and why is it important? And I don't know, maybe in brief, but it's important.
I mean, I could go back hundreds of years. No, but I think what's so relevant today is we have such a push. I think honestly, when George Floyd's daughter said, my daddy changed the world, it actually, that whole murder, I think really opened a lot of people's eyes about, something that they didn't realize was so bad. And I think for, certainly a lot of the Black community, it's yet another time this has happened. And, often there is not a whole lot of justice that takes place. And so I think with our ability now with the technology to actually, take video, take pictures, and have people there telling the story, along with the fact that, there is this whole movement and, people would say, Black Lives Matter, and people would think about, well, all lives matter. Yes, all lives matter. But the point was really to help people understand that Black Lives Matter, because most of the time they don't. And so it wasn't taking away from the fact that everybody else's life matters or that the police matter. It's really about just giving us the same amount of matter.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And so being able to, and I think, even as I was working in corporate at the time, as a vice president at Visa, one of the things that really came out for us was people started really talking and having a dialogue about things that they never would have before. I mean, we heard stories from people of different ethnicities that were, discriminated against and having just as, much of a difficult time, some having been beaten and tortured and all sorts of things. And I think it really allowed people to express themselves in a way that was a much deeper connection, to know how similar we are as people. We're not all that different from each other. And so being able to collaborate as you are doing in so many different ways, and, giving back to the community, that's really what people are looking for, is just to be allowed to have the same opportunities as everyone, right? And as those that have the privileged, which are typically white males, there is more than enough space, in the world for everyone. And I think the point is to make sure there are equitable practices throughout the process, whether you're talking about recruiting for jobs, or, getting capital for your business, just an equal opportunity. No special treatment necessarily, but just an equal opportunity.
Right. I think with that in mind, it just brings me back to a couple of experiences I've had in some of my meetings. And so some of my business partners are of the black community, within the black community. And when I introduce one partner with another from different businesses, there was something that there's an experience that I've had in that instance that I think was very unique, in that the discussion of, have you, so I was I don't know how I can make this simple. I'm sorry. Let me try to
Go ahead.
Podcast. So I've introduced some of my business partners together, both being black, and the question that they, when they first met, one of the questions that were brought up was, so have you experienced, the discrimination? I can't say it word for word, but along the lines of, what is your experience in, in this industry? Have they do they treat you differently? And for that question to just come up was unique for me. I haven't come across something like that, but to realize, wow, okay, this is something that's happening, and there are people that are being discriminated. It's happening, and for me to experience something like that was new, and just for that topic to be brought up,
yeah,
was eye-opening, and made me think this shouldn't be happening. And this is where I want to step in and say, this should not be happening. And I want to push forward even more, whatever collaboration we're doing. I want to support this, and I want to make sure that, we are supporting each other, and that you don't feel that way, especially when it comes with business with me and anyone of my networks that we work together. I will say that was a unique a topic of discussion from any meeting I've had. It is important to know that this is happening, and just from those discussions itself, I think people can formulate how we can structure things better for our future as a society. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think hopefully that's what most of us want these days, is to just be able to make sure that we're impacting the community in a way that allows everyone that equal opportunity. So that's awesome. I mean, the fact that you're first, in many ways for the distilled spirits is amazing. So you are blazing the trail, my friend.
Thanks for encouraging.
Yeah. So we're excited to see you blossom and grow, and we're going to be following Infanta. I'm going to get my bottle so that I can celebrate as well.
I've got a bottle for you, Melyssa. I've got one here. So,
No, we will definitely be buying a bottle, but we will share it and definitely spread the word for those around. And I'm looking forward to hearing so much more from you, Randy, and your success. So anything we can do, we look forward to having you back, and maybe you can talk more at that point as your company grows about all of the focus that you all have as you're moving forward.
I appreciate it. I appreciate being here. Thanks for having us. This is a wonderful podcast that is so fitting, and we are excited to be here. And hopefully, there's new fans of our brand, and also we also bring the same to your brand as well. And I appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. And sorry my voice was so raspy today, but we were just going to keep on moving. I didn't want to miss the conversation. So
No worries.
So thanks again, Randy. And I look forward to hearing more from Infanta.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining me on the Jali podcast. Please subscribe so you won't miss an episode. See you next week.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.